Well, Israeli President Isaac Hertzog has invited Albanese to visit Israel. The invitation comes after the Prime Minister here labelled Israel's actions outrageous this week, and he falsely accused Israel of blocking food trucks into Gaza. I had a lot to say about that on Monday night. Now, Paul Kelly in The Australian writes that the deterioration in Australia-Israel ties is deepening. He says that in remarks to Australian editors and journalists, President Hertzog made clear he would like to see Albanese involved more directly, a sentiment that reflects the ingrained Israeli view that Australia has become both a remote and poorly informed critic of Israel's Gaza strategy. And that's putting it politely. Hertzog also made it clear he would be happy to visit Australia. Now, former Treasurer Josh Frydenberg is part of that delegation in Israel, along with other journalists and editors, including Chris Kenny. And I'm thrilled to say we're going live to Israel now to join Chris Kenny. If only I could jump through the television and actually be there with you, Chris. And it's great to see you back again in Israel. You visited multiple times. Can you tell us, how was the meeting with President Hertzog and how frustrated does he seem with the Albanese government position?
Yeah, good to talk to you, Sharri. I'm coming to you from the Golan Heights. This is about 100 metres from the Syrian border here off to my left, another front that Israel has had to confront in recent decades, and particularly in the recent 19 months. Yes, that meeting with the Israeli President Isaac Hertzog yesterday afternoon was a fascinating one. It was generally speaking on background, and we spoke in detail about the challenges confronting Israel and also the way it's getting so much criticism from the international community. And the president was very frustrated with Australia's attitude. And it's important for people to understand this. The invitation is important. He made the point in this meeting that now we're going on the record. I want this invitation to be on the record so that we could report it and it could be public. And it's very clear that the president wants Anthony Albanese to come to Israel, not just as a matter of diplomatic nicety, but because he thinks the criticism that's coming from Australia is misinformed and unproductive. And he wants the Prime Minister to come here, learn for himself about the challenges, the threats that Israel's dealing with, the challenges in delivering aid into Gaza and keeping it out of the hands of the Hamas terrorists. And he wants Australia to then have the knowledge and then offer constructive criticism or constructive ideas and assistance. So it was very much in that spirit that this offer was made. And I think it's very important that people understand just how badly the Albanese Labor government in this critical time has damaged relations between Australia and Israel. This is a low point for the relationship, and portents of it improving underneath the Albanese Labor government with Anthony Albanese and Penny Wong in charge of foreign policy. It's not good. You would understand that as much as anyone, Sharri. It doesn't look prospective, but nonetheless, if Albanese really wants to be constructive and informed, he should come here.
Absolutely. And not just the anti-Israel sentiment, but Chris, throughout your meetings this week, has there been a sense of shock also at the anti-Semitism that's arisen in Australia, which I believe is inextricably linked to the government's anti-Israel attitude?
Yeah, you're right. And people do raise it with us. Probably not as much as they have done in the past, but it has been mentioned, what's going on in Australia? Why haven't your government and your authorities been stronger against anti-Semitism in Australia? What's behind it? Why are you seeing it? There's been those sorts of comments, but primarily there's so many people we've spoken to, government officials and other non-government agencies and citizens, have talked about what they call betrayal from Australia. And the history between Israel and Australia goes back to before this country was formed in 1948, of course, and it's been especially strong since then. And they feel that they've been stabbed in the back by Australia and betrayed in their darkest hour. Of course, Israel is fighting for its very existence, and this is when Australia has decided to abandon it in United Nations forums and through this sort of rhetoric. So it's a very clear theme here. It is sad, but the people-to-people links, as you would understand, Sharri, are still very strong. I've bumped into many many Australians here and many Israelis who know Australia and have visited there, and they're all over this country, and they want to keep the relationship strong. But at a government-to-government level, it's in a really bad place.
It is indeed. Chris, just here in Australia, the ABC issued a correction to their repetition of that inaccurate claim that 14,000 babies were at risk of starvation in Gaza in a 48-hour period. Now, the ABC only corrected this today. It's a full week after the BBC issued a correction. This is typical of the misinformation that we're seeing from the public broadcaster. It's typical of the bias that we're seeing from mainstream media outlets.
Yeah, this is disgraceful from the ABC, Sharri, absolutely disgraceful. This was a blatant lie. The moment it was uttered by the United Nations, you could see it was an utter lie. I corrected this on my program with some analysis of the facts a full week ago, yet the ABC ran with it and don't correct it till a week later. This is all of a pattern. You know, the media reports that Israel kills 500 people in a hospital. It's a lie, but the retractions and corrections never get the coverage that the original allegations get. And in this case, the ABC and many other arms of the media around the world, it should be said, went with this claim that 14,000 babies would die in 48 hours. Now, a moment's thought, if you know anything about the situation and the numbers of people and aid and the medical situation, you know anything about that, you know that whole idea sounds preposterous and implausible.
Indeed.
But when you drill into it and ask about it, of course, it referred that the only basis for it, the only slim basis for it, was a report on humanitarian issues that said if the war goes on for another year, then in the worst case scenario, if aid doesn't improve, there could be 14,000 cases of malnutrition in children up to 5 years of age. Yet this is reported as 14,000 babies dead in 2 days' time.
Completely
it
ridiculous.
is laughable and it's so damaging.
Chris, love having you join us from Israel. Look forward to seeing you when you're back, and of course, stay safe. Good travels.